Her voice wasn't shaky. It wasn't joyful either. It was something in between. Something I couldn't read. She stood in my doorway like a guest who wasn't sure she was welcome, her hair still damp from a hurried shower, and her dress carrying faint creases that didn't belong on a newlywed bride. I asked her to sit, though her face told me she didn't want to. She perched on the edge of the sofa, shoulders stiff, fingers nervously tracing the hem of her sleeve. The morning light caught the gold ring on her finger. Beautiful, yes, but strangely plain. The kind of ring chosen quickly, without ceremony. "What do you mean, yesterday?" I finally asked. She swallowed. "We decided it was better this way." Better for who? Better for what? She didn't answer. Maybe she couldn't. You would think a mother knows everything about her child, the dreams he holds, the fears he hides, even the lies he hasn't told yet. But that morning, I realized I didn't know where my son was. He wasn't with her. He hadn't called me. He hadn't messaged. Not even a single line. "He's out," she finally said when I asked. "Out where? Out doing what? Out with who?" Her eyes darted to the window as if expecting someone, or avoiding someone. And something inside my chest tightened. A familiar ache, quiet, but heavy. I made tea for both of us, the same way I used to make it for my son when he was little, when he would sit on the kitchen counter swinging his legs, telling me stories about his day. Back then, he told me everything. Now there were only empty chairs and unanswered questions. There is something strange about watching someone who is trying not to shake. Her fingers trembled when she lifted the teacup. She tried to hide it. She failed. The cup clicked softly against the saucer, a sound too delicate for the heaviness in the air. "Did something happen?" I asked gently. "No, nothing," she whispered. But her hands told a different story. They told me she had cried recently. The faint redness around her eyes, the way she blinked too long when gathering her thoughts. She looked like someone carrying a weight she wasn't ready to put down. And though she tried to appear calm, her silence exposed her. I tried calling him again. His phone was off, not unreachable, not busy. Off. A kind of silence that feels intentional. The fifth time I tried, she flinched. A small, involuntary reaction. Barely noticeable. Barely. But not to a mother. "You can tell me if something is wrong," I said quietly. She shook her head too fast, too firmly. "I promise everything is fine." But her voice cracked just slightly on the word fine. She went to the bathroom for a moment, and instinctively, I don't know why, I looked around the living room. That's when I saw it. A white fabric draped over the back of a chair. Soft, lacy, wrinkled. A wedding dress. Not hung with care, not preserved in a garment bag, just placed there, like something worn in a hurry and discarded even faster. One edge was torn, a small snag but visible. Weddings usually leave behind a trace of celebration. Flowers, leftover ribbons, the lingering scent of perfume. Her dress held only the scent of rain and the remnants of fear. When she returned, I saw me looking at it. Her voice was barely above a whisper. It wasn't
the wedding I imagined. I didn't ask why. I didn't have to. The dress already answered for her. Later, I checked the family WhatsApp groups, scrolling through messages, photos, celebrations. Nothing. Not a single image. Not a single story. Not a single post. No one, not even his closest friends, knew he was married. It was as if the wedding had never happened. "Did you two have anyone with you?" I asked carefully. She hesitated too long for the answer to be yes. "We wanted something private," she finally said. But her eyes said, "We were alone. We were rushed. We were scared." She finally spoke, properly, honestly, when the day began to darken and the weight of silence grew too heavy to carry. She told me they had fought the night before. Not a small disagreement. A real, trembling kind of argument that sits in a person's bones long after it ends. Not about love, not about commitment, but about fear, about pressure, expectations, family problems. Her parents telling her to walk away, his friends pulling him in opposite directions. Two young people, overwhelmed, making a decision faster than either of them was prepared for. He said getting married would make everything calmer, she whispered. Like it would fix everything. Her voice trembled, but it didn't. That night, after she fell asleep on the sofa, exhausted from holding in too many emotions, I checked my old messages with my son. The last message she sent me was short, only one line. I'll explain everything soon. Please just trust me. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Children say things like that when they're overwhelmed. But reading it now, with the emptiness of the house surrounding me, the words felt heavier. As if he knew something was coming. As if he was preparing me for silence. She woke before sunrise the next morning, the same way people wake when they haven't really slept. Her hair was slightly messy, her eyes swollen, her voice softer than the night before. "Do you think he's okay?" she asked. She didn't ask, "Do you think he's angry? Do you think he's avoiding me?" She asked, "Is he okay?" Which told me everything I needed to know. Her worry wasn't about the marriage. It was about him, his state, his silence. We sat outside as the sky slowly brightened. The air cooled, the birds quiet, as if the world itself was listening. "I just want him to come back," she whispered. And for the first time, she sounded like a wife. It was late afternoon when I heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Familiar. Not hurried, not excited. Just tired. Her breath caught. My heart tightened. The door opened with a soft creak, and there he stood. My son. Pale, eyes shadowed, clothes slightly damp, face carrying a truth heavier than anything he had ever spoken. He closed the door behind him gently, as if afraid of breaking something fragile in the air. "Mom," he began, but his voice cracked. And in that moment I realized this story was never about a wedding. It was about everything that came before it, and everything that was about to come after it.
He sat down slowly, as if carrying the weight of days in his body. I sat opposite him, the daughter-in-law nearby, hands folded, watching cautiously. The room felt alive with tension, yet quiet as a forest at dawn. He began, voice low, words deliberate. "I didn't mean to worry you. I needed space to think. Everything has been moving too fast." I nodded, silently. He wasn't ready to explain everything yet, and that was okay. Sometimes life, asks for patience. She looked at him, eyes glimmering with both relief and fear. And in that shared glance, I realized they were both fragile, young, scared, trying to navigate a world that demanded certainty from them before they could even understand themselves. The question hung softly in the room: how do we trust someone with our silence? The next morning arrived with pale sunlight spilling across the yard. We sat together in the living room, cups of tea warming our hands, the air still thick with unspoken emotions. I watched my son quietly, noting the slight tremor in his shoulders. The daughter-in-law's presence beside him was steady, grounding, like a small anchor in a storm. Outside, a bird called once, then silence. The quiet was soothing, yet fragile, a reminder of how delicate the morning was, how fleeting the calm. She finally spoke, softly. "I wanted to tell you. We didn't plan it, it just happened. And I'm sorry if we hurt anyone." Her voice was honest, vulnerable. And in that moment, I understood it wasn't the wedding that mattered. It was honesty. It was presence. It was them, finally, together and alive, despite the mistakes, despite the fear. I walked through the house, touching the familiar objects that held memories of my son's childhood. The hallway smelled faintly of rain and dust. Shoes lined the floor, backpacks slung carelessly over chairs. Photos on the wall caught the sunlight, moments frozen in time. His first day at school, the birthday parties, the quiet evenings spent reading. Everything reminded me of how quickly time passes, how little we often know of what our loved ones carry inside them. I realized, with a mix of sorrow and relief, that sometimes the most important stories are the ones we are only beginning to understand. And I wondered, how do we hold someone gently while still letting them grow? The day grew warmer, clouds moving lazily across the sky. A sudden drizzle began, soft and calming, tapping lightly against the windows. The sound of rain brought a strange comfort, like the world itself was urging us to pause, to breathe. My son sat silently, staring out at the wet streets. The daughter-in-law's hand rested lightly on his knee, a quiet reassurance. The rain felt like a curtain, separating us from the outside world, a private bubble where words didn't always need to be spoken. I sat back, letting the quiet envelop us. Sometimes I realized understanding grows in stillness, not conversation. Evening descended slowly. The warm light through the windows turned golden, softening the edges of the room. We talked quietly in fragments. Not full stories, not perfect explanations, but small confessions. Fears, regrets, hopes. He admitted the pressure he had felt, the doubts he had carried about their future. She shared her own worries, the ones she had tucked away behind polite smiles. For the first time, all three of us spoke honestly, without pretense. It was messy, slow, and utterly human. And I realized that love, at its quietest, often comes in moments like these, imperfect, fragile, and real. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the room. I watched them, the two of them, as they navigated their new life together. The daughter-in-law laughed softly at something trivial, and he smiled, the tension in his face easing slightly. I realized then that life doesn't need perfection. It doesn't need ceremony or approval. It just needs presence, honesty, and care. A small question lingered, quiet and persistent. Can we allow those we love to make mistakes and still be there for them? Later, we walked outside, the air crisp and fresh after the rain. The leaves shimmered with moisture, the ground soft beneath our feet. Silence accompanied us, comforting rather than empty. I watched my son walk slightly ahead, his posture less rigid, more open. The daughter-in-law walked beside him, her hand occasionally brushing his arm. Sometimes, words weren't necessary. Presence was enough. And as I followed them down the path, I felt a quiet sense of hope. Fragile, yes, but real. Night arrived slowly, stars beginning to appear in the clear sky. Inside, the lights were low, warm,
casting soft shadows across the walls. The house felt alive again, not with noise, but with subtle motion. The shifting of feet, the turning of pages, the soft exhale of tired lungs. We sat together, the three of us, not talking, but sharing the space. There was comfort in knowing that though the world was uncertain, we were still here, together. I asked myself quietly, how many moments like this go unnoticed, even when they are everything? The next morning, I woke to soft sunlight spilling through the curtains. They were already awake, sitting together in the kitchen, sipping coffee and quietly planning the day. Their gestures were tender, careful, full of unspoken reassurance. I watched, feeling a deep sense of relief. Life doesn't always announce itself with grand events. Sometimes it shows itself in quiet routines, shared glances, small acts of care. And I understood, love doesn't need permission. It doesn't need ceremony. It simply needs space to exist. The final scene arrives not with fanfare, but with quiet reflection. I sat at the window, the wind carrying faint scents of rain and earth, the world outside alive yet distant. My son and daughter-in-law moved through the house, a gentle rhythm forming between them, slow, deliberate, caring. And I realized, while yesterday had brought surprise, confusion, and fear, tomorrow offered patience, understanding, and presence. In the quiet of the late morning, I whispered to myself, everything will be all right in its own time. The world outside continues, steady, patient, and unknowing, but inside we have found a fragile, human peace.